of April 8th, 2015, calling the meeting to order at exactly 6 o'clock. First thing on our agenda, now the first thing on our agenda, we don't have a student report this evening. Talia couldn't make it. Moving right into new business. We have great news to start off the night with. Accepting a gift from Bose. Not a painful activity at all. Michael, would you like to talk about that?
So we were contacted pretty much out of the blue from the Bose Corporation, and they wish to donate 510 Bose Sound True headsets to the district, and at a value of about $150 per headset. That is a total value of the donation of $76,500, largest one that I've ever witnessed. So we very much appreciate the gift. It comes at a great time for us as a district and the work that we're doing with technology and assessment using technology. So they will be dispersed immediately.
Excellent. Would anyone like to make a motion? Somebody else do.
I can do this one. This one's fun. I make a motion to accept the gift from Bose Corporation for 510 Bose Sound True headsets.
Second. All those in favor? Resounding yes. No surprise. That's awesome. Thank you, Bose.
Thank you.
If it's okay with everybody here, I was thinking maybe we could flip-flop the discussion. So I think there are some people here in the audience that are here to talk about school choice. We could do that first and then do the coordinators and discussion, directors discussion after that. Is that okay with everybody? Any heads nodding no? Okay, great. Our school choice policy, typically what happens is the policy subcommittee brings a recommendation to the full committee about school choice if there are to be any changes made to the policy that currently exists. Our policy committee was unable to come up with a recommendation or come to an agreement. So we are bringing the discussion to the full committee tonight. Just to review, currently we have school choice in grades, would it be 1 through 12 now? Or 2 through 12?
We have student choice students in 2 through 12. 2
through 12 currently, and still accepting new students in the high school, 9 through 12. And our school choice is closed K to 8, except for students who have already chosen to be in our district. It's obviously still open to those school choice students. Would anyone like to? Okay, so before we discuss it. Okay, so I'm hearing that discussion is open to the public before we discuss it. And if there are people here who would like to voice opinions about school choice and the future of it, feel free. Yes.
Hello, my name is Lori Bowie. I am a second grader at the Center School in Stowe, and had a great experience there. I have a daughter who's eligible for kindergarten starting next year, and obviously I would love nothing more than for them to be together within the same school district and within the same community, obviously, as everyone would love their children to be. I do understand that the school choice in the Neshoba Regional District has been shut down for the last few years. What I was looking for and what I've done a little bit of research in is some of the surrounding towns who have offered a grandfather clause to siblings if and only if space is available within the class. I know that Acton-Boxborough did that. I know Greenfield did it. Holbrook, Sudbury, and some Boston schools did offer a sibling, more or less, grandfather clause, or however you want to word it, where actually a few of the schools, what they did was, regardless of if there was space, they would allow the siblings to come. Others, only if there were seats available within the class. basically, I went around the community and I just got signatures of support. I got 140 signatures in about 3 days of support. To be honest with you, I would say 80 to 85% of people thought that was the policy. They were surprised that it wasn't, and they're like, oh, wow, please. It makes sense to keep kids together. It builds a stronger school. It builds a stronger community. The parents become way more invested in that school and that community if both of their children are together. What I proceeded to do was collect the directories from the Lancaster, Bolton, and Stowe schools. I just sent out an email to those people who were not residing in the towns of where the school is located, and I just asked how many siblings were left. I mean, do you or do you not have a sibling that is looking for placement within the system? And I got 7 responses. I gave them 6 days to respond to me. I was kind of under the wire time-wise, but I got 7. Excuse me, you know what? I said 7 in the article. I got another email yesterday. It's 8. There's 8 children looking for spaces. So I did email these people back, and I said, what I'm advocating for, and you have to understand this, is if and only if there are seats available. I'm not saying that I'm pushing for every kid to get into the system. In a perfect world, wonderful. But I understand the overcrowding that school choice is facing. I'm kind of looking for that transition period until it fizzles out versus opening up school choice lottery for everybody. I'm just looking for people to kind of be a little bit compassionate in terms of let's keep the kids together if we can. I'm not expecting you to hire new teachers. I'm not expecting you to provide transportation for my child. That is still my responsibility, and I own that, and I will through 12th grade if I could. That's more or less what I am looking for. And then I read an article in the Stowe Independent last week where the assistant superintendent was commenting on the ailing budget due to the increased needs of special education, which a lot of towns are facing, but also the decrease in the school choice income. It was brought to my attention that if there are seats available in the classroom, by filling it with a school choice child, it is not costing the district any money. You are getting money from the town that that child is coming from above and beyond what it would cost to fill that seat. No more teachers, no more electricity, so on, roughly speaking, so on and so forth. So that's just what I wanted to bring to the table, and hope and pray that I can keep my kids together.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
John Marks and Stowe. I wrote a letter earlier, I guess it's part of the packet, so I don't need to review it in total. But in particular, my point is dealing with the space needs that we have been so heavily involved with at the high school recently. And if you're looking at providing additional classroom space, there's only 2 ways you can do it. You either expand the space or you reduce the demand on that space. And even though it would not be an instantaneous relief because of the pipeline effect, you have to keep the kids that are in there. I would hope that the current limitation on school choice that is in effect for the lower grades, that you seek to amend the policy and include the high school, but on that for the same reasoning, that a few years down the road, we will start to free up some space. Certainly the imminent need for space has been demonstrated by your willingness to underwrite the move of the Stowe's gift to you, the portable classrooms, which survived through the budget process and hopefully will be online available to relieve some of that pressure this fall. And I think that this would be another move to underwrite that need for additional space resources that has been so amply demonstrated through the preparation for the NEASC, the self-assessment study. I must have seen the word space accommodations as I read through that document some time ago 25 times. Yes. But it's clearly something everybody recognizes as a problem. This is one other way that I think you tonight can move to address that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any comments or suggestions? How about around our table? Any,
I have a question of clarification. Are we voting on, just based on the email that we shared, are we voting just on this coming year? Or are we voting on the entire policy and the protocol?
we're actually not voting on anything unless somebody wants to make a motion to change what we currently have in place.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
so if there is no motion, then there is no change. And if there isn't a motion, then we would have to vote on that motion.
Okay. Okay, thank
So-
you.
okay.
That's all.
So,
Okay, so we're voting, right now, we're discussing what our general policy and protocol are, regardless of whether or not we are going to have a school choice next year. Is that right? Or are you saying that,
Yeah,
no,
so-
we're going to vote to get rid of it or not?
no, so in the absence of a recommendation from the policy subcommittee, we're going to say that, somebody, if you want, correct me if I'm wrong, but if there isn't a motion to change what we currently have in place, then there's no vote and nothing changes. If somebody would like to make a motion, a proposal for changing this in some way, this would be the time to do it, and then we'll take a vote.
That's correct. We're not reviewing the policy or the protocol tonight until after there's a vote.
Okay. How many school choice students do we currently have in the district in grades 8 through 11?
Something like 135.
Because, 12, they'll be graduating, so, and 8th will fill in when they move up to the high school in the fall.
K through 8, the
I think
actual class
K through 8
sizes.
is 830, something 135.
Class sizes?
But we, specifically 8 schools, I was curious about, since they'll be moving to the high school.
There's about 15 currently. And it's in the teens.
It's in the budget documents.
March 25th.
It's also in the budget folder.
The two documents that I gave, are they in the budget documents on school choice?
The one from the DOE is in our packet.
Oh, no, I was talking,
Okay.
that's a
Something
question
else, sorry,
from
sorry.
Sorry. So, I have many opinions, as you know, about this. But before I even need to voice any of those, I see the letter from you, Michael, from the DOE in our packet that said we cannot, from the legal department, I believe, we cannot limit school choice openings just to siblings.
Correct.
That's correct. So that's not an option, unless we
Yeah.
open it up to a free lottery for everybody.
Correct. And I appreciate, you did a lot of good research, and Roger Hatch was the person that Haley spoke to. And I spoke to him right afterwards, just to clarify, because I feel like I talk to him every year about the same conversation. It's very clear in the law that you cannot discriminate in your approach to school choice. It's very clear. His understanding of his conversation was that he did not use the word grandfather. He simply explained that you can open your school choice and you can essentially create, however way you want to, the number of seats, and you have the obligation to take school choice sibling preference first, and you do. There are districts, and Haley is correct, I read the materials that she provided, that actually, one actually uses the phrase grandfathering. I received a call from Mr. Hatch about a week later, where he said, upon hearing that and hearing my conversation and reflecting upon this conversation with Haley, they were going to investigate that because they cannot do that. So those communities will be getting a call from the DESI because of that. It doesn't mean that what they've done isn't going to change necessarily, they just got to change the wording of what they've done.
The wording here on the Acton Boxborough, which I have up right now, is, and they are closed to school choice currently. They're not accepting any new families. But their wording is that they decide by May 1st the number of spaces that will be available. And I'm assuming that means, you know, if they see a sibling coming in and they have space in that grade, they say we will have one second grade space available. Preference is given to siblings of current choice students. That's how they put it. And that's how they are transitioning out of choice. And again, all predicated on if there is space available. So it's not the word grandfather, I think, is what we shouldn't be using. I think the word we should be using is transition.
I think that is better.
Yeah.
With that being said, that with the right wording, it could happen. I personally am not for it, just because I don't feel there's many great families that would love to come to our schools, and just because you have an older sibling that happened to get in, it seems somewhat of a discriminatory thing to me. That, you know, I know people who've been, you know, had a kindergartner and didn't get in last year and have 3 other kids and would, you know, give their left arm to come, but instead they're selling their house and moving here. And unfortunately, that's the choice they have, and that's the choice they're making.
It is a choice. I do agree with that. I also believe that we've already accepted through lottery these families into our community. And we are asking them now to either leave our community or split their children up. And I think if we have the space available, it is much more compassionate and kind of us to allow them in to be part of our community until we have choice no longer. And we can argue that point because of how I feel about school choice. But in this particular instance, it only makes our community richer, and these families are already bought into the system. And to have that sitting next to my child is nothing but good for my child. And again, all predicated on space.
So we need to make a motion?
And do we also need to talk about high school, or can this be 2 separate issues?
We can make a motion and go from there.
All
Yeah.
right.
So I
Go ahead, Julie.
make a motion that we do not open school choice K to 8, and we also eliminate it at the high school.
Second.
What? I'm not, I said, sorry.
I'm reluctant to vote for the second half of that.
I think we can do the
Then
vote
you can-
and then.
Yeah, and then it can
doesn't
decline,
pass.
and then we can make a different one. Right. We can big and bold, you know?
Okay, so I second it.
Okay. All those in favor? All those opposed? Does that pass?
Yeah.
4 to 3?
That's 4-3.
So in one fell swoop, we've just...
There's no space.
You just eliminated it at the high school, and I didn't even get to say anything about it?
Nancy, there's no space.
Well, I disagree, but...
I totally disagree, and we've all been sitting in these meetings, several meetings, with select people and others saying, you know, the budget, we just cut a whole bunch of money out of our budget for next year, like that. And in one
How much
fell
did
swoop,
we cut from the high school? How many open spots are
Potentially
there?
500,000.
How much, no, we didn't. How many, you know, because we can't, because the children that are here are here. How many
So
open
we-
spots do we have for next year?
There are 12 open spots.
Okay,
With 13.
so it's $60,000 of revenue, but then there's the expense, so.
Yeah, we'll take it out of UD. Okay.
Well, you got it.
I mean, I guess there's nothing to be said. I mean, we can't undo the vote, right? I mean,
Only if somebody who voted for it makes a motion to reconsider.
If we decide to do school choice, in my opinion, I think we need to do a better mathematical job at deciding where the school choice should go. Mathematically speaking, when we listen to the analysis from DESE, is that correct?
He was missing. The gentleman who was here last week?
MESDC.
Yeah.
He talked a lot about making sure there is no additional expense. So we have a bunch of policies. We have a policy on school about classroom size limit, but we also have kind of a comfort level of how big the class gets, which isn't even the same. You know, we get to a comfort, then we get really uncomfortable, then we add a teacher. So if we re-looked at not only per class, per town, but the projection of that class per town to the high school, and mathematically speaking, looked at that year after year, I'm comfortable with school choice that way, because now we know the immediate effect per class, per grade. I am uncomfortable with school choice at the high school being a flat 25. I don't think that mathematically speaking, and he said exactly the same thing, that we can say there is no additional cost, because there is a real space need, and there is a real issue with space in the high school. So if we're gonna look at it, I'm open to looking at redesigning the approach more than I'm, which is saying high school gets it, nobody else does.
So, we had exactly that procedure K through 8. So,
But having that procedure K through 8 is different than having that
agree.
procedure K through 8 with projected results. If we have that procedure K through 8 and Stowe is at an all-time high, we're funneling too many kids into the high school.
Yep.
So we all have to pull back. You know what I mean?
Right, but our protocol actually did do that. Our
Okay.
last go-around, we did max the class in each of the communities to 96, so we did exactly what you're saying.
So the
But
projections.
my point was actually not that, I just wanted to
Okay.
clarify something you said. At the high school, where I agree with you, it's not as mathematical, obviously, it's 25 per grade. It's more challenging to do mathematical at the high school.
Sure.
But I would tell you that, given the current enrollment of 25 per grade, there are no classes that would be under-enrolled because of school choice.
So I
Missing.
know from my experience, I couldn't move my daughter because she couldn't get into a class that was over. You know what I mean? So like, I believe that, but without seeing the numbers, I'm a number.
Yeah, I would have to go in and pick out all the kids, and I'd have to take a look at that, you know. I mean, that piece
But
may be more accurate, that kids didn't get a class because of
Independently, it's
enrollment.
not just looking at Stowe, it's not just looking at Ford,
Right.
it's looking at the combined as well, funneling the high school.
Correct. And again, our K through 8 did exactly that,
So
but
it's
it
individual
stopped.
and then it's combined.
Right.
But it combined to 25.
The 25, I don't even get. You don't, like, that is exactly opposite of what he recommended of being a good approach.
Right.
It's literally exactly what he said you shouldn't do.
But the number came from the fact that we had 25 per grade at the high school, and we couldn't exceed 25. And that's
Having
why,
a per
that's the
grade,
difference.
having a per grade number and the high school is what he said you shouldn't do. Because you don't know year after year what your space is available. One year it might be 30 and one year it might be 20, so you should carpe diem that.
right, but how do you do that with kindergarten?
Who knows?
Well, actually, our model for K through 8 does allow for that because we are able to cap it with the 96 and so forth. Using that same approach, we could go into doing that. But the challenge is, once they're in the system, you're going to essentially be beholden to
Yes,
who's
you're
already in the...
beholden, yeah, and there's a lot to that.
So what if we talked about changing the way that we determine the number in the high school?
That's a little hard to say, you want to.
No, I'm happy with the vote, but I'm just saying if there was discussion, if there's.
It just has to be a person that.
If there's a lot of people who are really unhappy with the vote and why, I'm just saying what I'm open to.
Well, 3 are unhappy, 4 are not. I mean,
sounds-
am I allowed to say why I'm unhappy? Or
Of course.
is that not? I mean, well, it's not up for discussion if it can't be revoted, right? I mean, so, I'll take this opportunity to say, in my opinion, we are turning down money that we've already been counting on for in the short term that I think is a different problem than we had. K through 8, I was against it because it was not equitable. We had
classrooms in certain schools that had room, other schools that didn't. But in the high school, we're regional, and it's more, we're a district at the high school, and much, I know we are everywhere, but we're much more in reality a district at the high school. So we didn't have that issue of which town was doing what in the school choice issue. The other thing that's so different about the high school that doesn't apply to K through 8 is that the kids are picking their classes and the levels of their classes. And there's so many classes, it's not like we're saying, oh, now we have another 9th grader, so there's going to be 26 kids instead of 25 in every class. Because that 9th grader is going to take all these different classes, 7 different classes, and we don't know which one he's going to pick or she's going to pick. So it's not like it's throwing an entire grade over the edge or an entire classroom for an entire day. There's much more flexibility in the high school model for kids to go in and out. And it seems to me that we're rushing to this decision. I mean, if we have somebody like you, ma'am, who, darn it, you can't get your younger kids into the school system now, but at least hopefully in 9th grade you could, and then have them all in the same high school, and to just pull the rug out entirely, just point blank, doesn't seem right to me. I mean, we committed to sticking with the high school, we should stick with it, at least for the short term.
But we committed to sticking with each policy each year could be revisited. I am, and I don't think it's any secret, I am not for school choice. I don't understand why people feel entitled to it, and not to be a negative way. I honestly don't understand it. I don't. We live in these towns, and a good portion of us, I would say most of us, come here because of, the beautiful area and because of the schools. We all make sacrifices to live where you live, and I've said this 100 times. I had 4 children in a school system, and my options were school choice, private school, or move, and I moved 4 kids in a school system to come here to be better because I believe that was the right thing to do for my family. And I paid a mortgage on 2 houses for 6 months. It was awful. But my kids are here, they earned their spot, they deserve their spot, and I do feel entitled to it because this is where we live. And I do get that, you want your kids together, but you have a choice. Your kids can be together, I'm sorry, and I'm just as passionate as you are, and nothing personal, in your community. They can be together, that's a choice. And I'm sorry that it's, I really don't, it is personal because it's children and families, but I'm not for it. And I think if it's just for, $60,000, yes, that's a lot of money, but you know what, let me give you this example. So my kids are in middle school, right, down in Lancaster, and there's 5 kids on a basketball team where 10 kids make it. 5 of those kids don't live in my town. 5 of them, which is fine, because they're now part of my community, but you know what? 5 of those kids could have been kids that lived in this town for their whole life on that team. a kid who is getting a scholarship could be a kid who lives in this town, but it's somewhere else. I just don't think it's fair. Once you're here, I love you, it's great, you're part of our family, happy to have you here, but I don't feel like we don't owe anyone. We just don't owe it to them. We owe it to our students to keep our classes smaller, to get, more space for them, to, give more to our teachers, and there's great, great families that don't live in the town, but I just don't think you feel like it's the right thing to do. I don't feel obligated at all. And as harsh as that sounds, that's just how I feel.
Just to, was there a hand back there? No, wait, no.
I was
Lynn, sorry.
Go ahead.
Lynn's hand was up first.
As far as the high school goes, I don't know if it was explained, but we've heard it a couple of times. And when they make the schedule for the high school, when they only had 1,000 kids, what they would do is they would place all the kids and they would find the rooms. Now it has gotten so large, once they got past 1,000, now they have to place the rooms first, especially science, and then they start putting people in and it becomes difficult. So when you talk about 100 kids, it makes a difference. It makes a
100
big
kids ago,
difference.
it was still a problem. It was a problem 5 years
It was
ago,
tight,
and 100
but not as
years-
bad as it is now. But they were talking about, it was about 1,000 that they had to change the way they were doing things because they couldn't place them in rooms.
We have some data too that's come out of the task force subcommittee. What is it? Space study.
Space task force.
And there are incidents, and there's a few of them that have been listed, and there are more, where students were denied classes because there were too many children or students that couldn't be accommodated. So accelerated biology, 22 students were denied the opportunity to take a 5-credit course. 6 CP students were turned away from 5-credit CP biology course. 17 students turned away from 5-credit CP chem. I think there was 100 students were turned away from taking the business class because they really wanted it. So and to your point, I hear what you're saying, but there are constraints, and adding a couple of more kids doesn't sound like a big deal, but when we're looking at situations like this, it just adds to that. So, and Lynn was right, we've been told, we have to build to the classroom, and maybe it's been like that for a long time, but then they have to try to find places to plug kids and call them and say, you're not getting this class, what else do you want? Or we're gonna bump you down from a 5-credit bio to a 4-credit. God, I hope it never happens. I hope it never happens to my kid, but, bumping
Yes, I
them
do
down.
too.
What?
I guess I do too.
Yeah.
So what about the other,
But just to
I
be
know
clear,
that his part of-
everybody got science.
Everyone got that.
Yeah.
The 4-credit option for science classes was introduced the year that my daughter was a freshman, which would be the 2007-2008 school year. It was introduced by 2 principals ago to accommodate kids who wanted to take band, et cetera, et cetera. So part of that is
No, this was the
problem
kids
created
that
it.
wanted the 5-credit.
right. And I know kids who wanted it that had nothing to do with anything except that you can't have a 5-credit accelerated chemistry running the same time as AP chemistry. It's not going to happen because there's only the one place where you can have the labs and everything there. So it doesn't matter who, if they don't, if they, for example, to take chemistry, if they don't want to take AP chemistry and that's the only time period they can take chemistry, they're not going to get a 5-credit, doesn't matter how much they wanted it.
So, can I just throw in, reaching out to the community, most people I spoke to aren't for school choice. So beyond, every single person I talked to wasn't for adding school choice.
On a different subject, though, I think every single person you talk to would agree with Julie and say that the people who are in the community are now part of our community.
Absolutely.
And let's continue to treat them as such.
Absolutely.
We don't make them.
And so, to your point, too.
You wouldn't know who the choice kids were.
Right.
That's me.
Yeah. Of the to back off of the high school a bit and just get back to the, to the siblings. If, like Kathy said, we could look at each class, determine what we're comfortable with. Like, say we're comfortable with 18 to 22 kids in a second grade class. If any of those classes have 18 kids in them, we're not going to consider adding a sibling into that class. But if that class, like my first grader was in a class of 15 because of people moving out of the district, he had room in that class. And we could have kept that, and if
But we can't handpick and give only siblings and not.
we can.
Transitionally, you can manipulate it so that the number of openings.
Doesn't really sound like the spirit of the law, to be perfectly honest. It sounds like you're.
Okay, but the spirit of the law was to create competition between public schools.
And I don't think the spirit of the law was either meant to be punitive to the people who were
But
being
if the
transitioned
lottery
out.
happened the next year, they might not have gotten in anyway. So, if the lottery was to come up year after year,
A family, once a child is in, the family.
if there was 3
what
siblings
isn't-
and there was 1 spot, what do you do in that case? What are you gonna do if there's 3 siblings for 3rd grade in Stowe and we have 1 spot?
Well, then that is a lottery.
And when they signed up for the lottery, there was no guarantees.
Yeah, but then
That was a
even in this
chance.
district, when there was choice, there was always, the families were considered
There was
first.
never a guarantee.
No, there was
Never.
not a guarantee, but there was preference
Yeah,
for
siblings don't,
siblings
yeah.
of existing students. So if there's only one opening and 3 siblings from different families, then yes, there would have to be a lottery for that one spot, but that would be the same as if there were no openings in that grade and 3 siblings. It's just that 2 instead of 3 would be this.
Now, isn't this the policy issue at this point?
No, it has been, because policy bumped it to us, so
Oh, they did?
it's now our issue.
I thought it was.
They didn't agree on changing anything, so.
Yeah, we didn't agree.
You didn't have a recommendation.
We didn't have a
for the full
recommendation to bring
committee.
to the committee.
That's what I said at the beginning of the meeting.
Yeah, but, so what you'd have to do now is, right now, what you couldn't agree on was whether to open it up or not, right?
In essence, yes. We were primarily, we didn't touch high school.
We didn't have enough time to discuss
But we
everything.
just talked about sibling preference.
So if the vote's been taken and we're done, if there's any changes that's gonna happen, sorry, to the future stuff, that would be policy, right?
Like,
It
but-
would be moot, right?
Yeah, why do we keep?
We just
got rid
voted,
of it, so-
so there's no point in going back to policy, because we've already voted.
Why wouldn't we go back to policy? Because
Because you don't need a policy because you've gotten rid of it, so it's a dormant policy. So why waste your time when you've got other things to talk about?
because
Because of what
Well,
Kathy said.
you've just gotten rid of it, so why spend
Let me
time
ask
now
the
on a
question,
policy
okay?
that's not gonna matter
Let me ask
for
the
10
question.
years?
So the question is, we don't have it this year, but we still have a policy that will come up again next year. So is it that do we need to look at the underlying policy that still is alive? We've just voted not to exercise it this year.
Well, I can't imagine that we would want to every year be on this roller coaster. This year we have it, this year we don't, this year we have it, this year we don't. That seems.
Well, the reason I ask that is because I don't necessarily agree with, I don't understand, well, I do understand, but I would like to look at the way that it's built. We talked about this, we talked about some recommendations to it. And so if we take this vote right now, which we have, and we say there's no school choice for the upcoming year, there's still an underlying policy and protocol that is in play
It's not in play because.
for subsequent years.
No, because we've eliminated, we have
Unless
to go back and.
somebody thinks next year that we're gonna reinstate school choice with this is the policy.
As, with
So
the
the-
same protocol that we had before. It doesn't have to, that,
They could change it or they could use
Right.
it, so it would be the.
it would be, as Maureen said, a dormant policy. So
So it seems, it would make more sense to me to look at the policy and the protocol if you were reconsidering opening it up and saying what would make it work if we were going to do it. But since you've already decided you don't want to do it, you don't know how the committee is going to feel when you might be.
So this
visiting
goes,
again.
so it goes away, goes on, what is,
Goes
what,
away.
okay, that's what I wanted to know. All right,
And then if
thank
they
you.
wanted to bring it up, they would have to write it in policy.
Okay,
for it.
that's what I needed to know.
Keep it as historical.
That's what I didn't understand, thank you.
It just seems to me like we just made a really rash decision without thinking it through entirely. I haven't been a big proponent of school choice over the years, and I'm happy that it's closed K through 8, and I think that's the right thing to do. My concern is, even though we've calculated with 12 open seats, we're talking about $60,000 for next year, the potential for every year is $500,000, $500,000. And that's what we are just saying categorically, no thank you to, year after year after year. And $500,000 is not a small amount of money.
No, it can be brought up every year, just like we chose to bring it up some years and we chose not to.
It came up every year.
Why?
And it did come up every year, and, right.
I mean, I think that that's wreaking havoc with the families that we're inviting in. If we say, this year it's on, this year it's off,
No,
this year
I
it's on.
agree, obviously, but.
I think we should either, have it or not have it and stick to it. And
But we can't say to someone who wants to bring it up, you can't bring it up again. That's not,
That's true.
If someone wants to bring it up next year and say, I want to revisit school choice and I want to make send it to policy to make a policy, then who are we to say, no, you can't do that?
But based on the numbers that I've seen, I'm more concerned about the high school and less concerned about K through 8, but I'm more concerned about K through 8 funneling the high school because of the increased numbers in Stowe. And I am very concerned about the high school because I don't feel that 100 kids don't matter in the calculations of room scheduling and availability of classes. I feel like it does matter.
But does, the only part about that I think was overlooked, or at least not mentioned out loud that I know of, is the positive course selection that comes about because of increased students. So in other words, if, like currently, there's no CP Spanish 4 offered. It's not available at the high school. There are a handful of kids that would love to take it, but they can't because it's not being offered. If there were more kids that had signed up for that class, then it would be offered.
But there's good,
So, and-
but there's good opportunities because, like in German, accelerated and honors share the same classroom and they're just given slightly different work. So there are solutions as well, building in a smaller class, so, you know what I mean?
I'm just saying
Yeah.
that there are some upsides, and that was just one example. Another example is that if we had enough students interested in a business course, which now we do and we didn't used to have, and maybe there would be two.
Too many now.
Now, maybe we could reach up to 2 business courses, and now we have some theater classes that didn't used to be offered. Well, that's because we have enough kids who want to take them. And if we, it's the classic model, if you have a bigger school, you can have more offerings. So I'm
If
just,
we had more space, I think I would feel totally different. But after the NEASC report, after the high school tours, after, I just feel like there's no space.
Can I ask a procedural question?
yes.
We, are we done? We took a vote, can we move? Are we done? Well, this,
Could I just add one more thing, just a point of information in terms of things that I do?
yeah, thank you.
I just to keep in mind, as it did happen, and it was something that caught me off guard when we changed K through 8, they did leave far faster than I had projected they would leave, and I suspect for parents who have more than one child who is not yet in the high school but is in track to go to the high school, with this vote, they might leave faster, simply because they can't get their sibling in, and even if when they go to the high school, they can't get their sibling in. So it may be more than $60,000. I just want that on the record, that people understand that for next year, it probably will be more than $60,000. Would you agree?
I would agree.
Okay, well, if nobody wants to reconsider their vote, then we can move on in the agenda. I would still like to have an opportunity to vote differently, but so would Maureen and so would Nicole, I'm
And
sure.
unfortunately, I think this happens with many things when we disagree. And it depends on whose side of the table the discussion gets to continue or not. And So unfortunately, it's a pretty split thing, and people feel strongly either way, and no one wants to end it because they don't agree with it. But unfortunately, that's how, I mean, we've both been on both sides of it. You know, you don't feel great about it, and it's done, and then, you know, you feel good about it, and it's done, and so unfortunately, I don't think there's a lot we can do about it. Okay. I mean, I'm happy to listen to what everyone says, but in the nature of getting through everything, I think we just need to keep that in mind.
Be ready when we're complaining about the budget. That's all I can say. Okay. We went from school choice, so now we're going to go back up to the discussion about our teaching and learning department, our coordinators, and our directors. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Sorry it was the outcome you had. Michael, would you like to take that?
Well, I did put a piece in my superintendent's report, just some background. The job descriptions are there. I don't know what the point of reference was for this to be added to the agenda, so if there are specific questions I can answer, I'm more than happy to do that as a starting point, and then maybe we can get into a conversation.
I wanted to, excuse me, I just want to clarify why it's on there. I wanted to understand what the, help me, yes, you sent me the email, it's the curriculum
Coordinators.
coordinators. Who
yes.
are they, what do they do, what do they, what value do they bring, how many do you want?
Sure.
Thank you. Just I don't know who they are.
Sure. So we have, we have 4 coordinators in the Department of Teaching and Learning. We have a STEM coordinator, media and technology, or digital, we call them now digital learning, the enrichment coordinator, and the health and wellness coordinator.
And what do they do?
So, excuse me?
Just said 4.
What, there's only a single CIA person, or
So, yeah, I haven't finished. So I got-
Okay, sorry. Sorry.
So, and then there's a 5th coordinator who works with, really is an appendage to the Department of Special Services. She's the early childhood coordinator and early childhood, and is affiliated with our preschools, which is, works with our special education department. So those positions are the key positions to developing, facilitating, and implementing any curriculum, assessment, or instructional practices in the district. They are key to our mission. And in our district, because we are very lean on school administrators, these folks also support the district, the schools, in terms of the evaluation process, and really always have. And now that it's become more involved, it's more of a godsend that they're involved in the evaluation process.
So what do they do for evaluation?
So it's a little bit different in each school because it's a conversation between and among the administration in the building. So some of the coordinators conduct all of the evaluation.
Of whom?
Of people within their department. So digital learning covers all of our instructional technology staff, all of our librarians and staff.
So are they in the schools though?
Our curriculum leaders,
Are the curriculum coordinators?
they're in the schools every day, yeah. Their offices are here, but they're in the schools.
Okay, so
Yeah.
So they're not teachers or something?
they're
They're
not teachers.
They're administrators, they have an administrative license.
So if they do the evaluation, then what are the department, do you have department leads or department heads?
So only at the high school do we have department chairs, and they are very, very part-time. They have one period of relief. But they're really, the way their job description was negotiated, they really are managerial leaders. They don't do anything as part of the evaluation process.
One period a day or one period a week?
One period a day.
They have one period a day.
Right.
So the department chairs who manage the people,
Well, they really don't manage people. They manage the department. So So they were responsible for ordering, they were responsible for facilitating the department meetings.
They get a lot of emails.
They do get emails. The principal uses them as a conduit for communication.
So does the principal, if these people evaluate the teachers, do the principal, where does the principal come in?
So it's always a through line. The curriculum leaders that evaluate are always having conversations with the building principal on what they're seeing and what they're doing. They're required to meet with the principal, touch base with the principal, either before or after they are done with whatever they were doing at their
But do the
assigned time.
principals evaluate the teachers?
So, depending on how the principal and the coordinator have arranged it, the principal signs off on every evaluation that's required by law. So they're involved in that process of reviewing the evaluation, the recommendations of the evaluation, and so forth. But now, you can have anywhere between 5 and 10 visits to a classroom as required. And those all require write-ups. And each of the educators has to submit and put online evidence that they are working toward their goals. All of that has to be reviewed. We try to have, my goal is to have a direct report line of about 1 to 20. Most of the administrators are at 1 to 30, even with the support of our coordinators in the evaluation process. So we're really trying to figure out ways to improve, because a big part of evaluation is feedback. And so we want face time between administrators, coordinators, and teachers.
So how does that, so now this, thank you for this, because I really didn't understand the role, and I saw it in the budget, and I just couldn't figure it out. But now that I understand a little bit better, how does that work in the schools if the principal is the leader and he's got department people that do mostly ordering and creating meetings, but they're not evaluating the people who work in the school? How does that reinforce the principal as the leader versus these people whose offices are here, but they kind of travel around to all the schools?
So it's a constant conversation. So the principal is fully aware of what is bubbling. They're going to visit the teachers as well. They're not out of the loop in that regard. It's just that the workload would be too much if it all.
What if we hired another principal or two? I don't know.
Because there
Have to
is
think through.
distinct school work that needs to be done,
So they're
but
doing
there's
more than just
distinct.
evaluating.
That's right. They're doing more than evaluation. The bigger portion of their job is all of the support pieces that have to get done as a district. So curriculum work that has to be done and facilitated. Each one has a separate component of their role that's a district role. So, for example, the digital learning coordinator is responsible for implementing all of our software initiatives that we have. So that's a huge interactive piece with outside folks. Our STEM coordinator is doing all of the work with the evaluation support piece around designing the analysis of the assessment tools, which is huge. So, we each take on a piece that is too big for a school administrator to take on top of working with all the aspects of their job.
So I understand the principal not getting directly involved other than the review.
Mhm.
What surprises me and concerns me at the high school level, because high school courses versus K-8 courses are so different, is that the department chair doesn't at least once a week sit on one of their department classes to do one of those evaluations. I really think that might be beneficial because even from listening to the NIASH report about curriculum consistency, about having to get curriculum into, a more in sync way, and kind of doing the same message, promoting the goals. There's no way 5 people who have specialties can know if an Algebra 2 teacher or a AP chemistry teacher is teaching content in a way that a ninth grader can understand it or a 12th grader can understand it. Like, it's teaching is different than competence. So it surprises me,
Right.
and it concerns me.
Well, let me
But
tell
I'm
you-
not a school administrator, but
Right.
that concerns me.
So in all of the areas, they're experts in their field, and most of them were hired because they had greater depth of experience across grade levels than just a singleton, I taught grade 5 all of my life. So, for example,
But you wouldn't get, so is, like,
sorry,
I think that a department chair for science in high school versus a department chair in math in high school versus a department chair in English versus somebody who's been in the K through 5 world or the 6 through 8 world, those are hugely different core competencies. And there's no way that one of these people can be all of those things. You would need every license under the sun. I'm just saying, you don't have to defend it. I'm saying it concerns me that that's not part of our practice.
well, just so you know, the licenses range from 6 through 12. So it actually is possible that you could be a science teacher and teach in 6th grade and then teach
So,
ninth
so you
grade.
can keep, like,
So-
you can, I just, it concerns me personally. That is surprising to me. I had never heard it, but it.
But we look for people, when we
Get
hire for these
department
positions,
head.
that they had that experience.
But we also talked about, I'm not defending it, or, it's your school to run, I'm here to help, and listen, but as a person who works and manages people, it surprises me that your department heads don't sit in at least once a week on their department's classes. That surprises me.
It's both a contractual piece and there's a piece around, it's really not carved out in statute this way, but it is within the MTA that you cannot evaluate someone within your own contract. So a Unit A member, which our department chairs are, cannot
So
evaluate.
legally, they can't.
They can't unless they had a very separate job.
So they would have to be an administrator.
They would have to be administrative.
So that's why, so that makes sense, because I heard people, some districts changing department heads to be administrators, and then they become full-time employees, and that's not desirable, so people don't want to be, so that makes sense to me.
So, and we're trying to push in that direction. For example, we're asking our department heads to consider going and getting their director's license, and supervisor license, so they can.
But we don't want to
begin
scare away good department
You
heads
don't,
either.
exactly.
This is a fine
Exactly.
line
So
you
it
don't
is a
want to
fine
play.
line.
It
And we
is.
also want people doing evaluations who have been trained to be evaluators, not just teachers.
Right.
Right.
But
The department heads do
I
share.
can't
But you can give them the
imagine, it's like the same kind of thing. You want evaluators to be evaluators, but I can't, like that's just such a hard thing to know so much as one person. It's really,
Which is what the principals and vice principals have to do.
Right, they're in the same boat.
Because they, right. They have to do so
but
many
you would
different
end up with
subjects.
inherent weaknesses and.
Especially at the high school.
Yeah,
Because the subjects get so
specialized.
high level, yeah. Lynn, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I just was wondering, each of the CIO has their own specialty, so they're not asked to do anything else, but if they're STEM, right? So,
For the most part.
so how many teachers do we have?
310,
So they're just evaluating the teachers, right?
the CIA.
Yeah.
Yeah, they evaluate teachers.
So what's the order? Like, they're working, so they work for you, or are they equal with the principal? What's the,
So they're peers to the principals, they're an administrator but I supervise that department.
okay. So,
Ooh, they're
Because-
peers to the principal?
They're an
yeah.
administrator, they have the same
They're administrators.
licenses as the principal does.
But they're not taking any direction from the principal, they're taking direction
Well,
from
no,
you?
there's conversations of, it's a peer, it's a collaboration. It's not, they're not their boss,
Yeah.
but they certainly, it's a collaboration. If the principal says, I really need you to see Miss Coletti because I have questions about her performance in the classroom, then they go in and see Miss Coletti. So, definitely.
So, if you need, so they have to have, by some organization, they have to have 5 to 10 visits per year?
Depending on the plan.
So that means that each one of these CIAs has to visit every single teacher at least once.
Oh, more than once, yeah.
No.
Well, that's,
Well,
that-
that's
that's
fine.
no, they're not
because they're
doing
gonna get-
310. So
They're gonna get a cohort.
they're going to get a cohort of roughly 20 to 25 people. They may be focused all in one building, they may be spread out across buildings, but they're going to see 20 to 25 people so that we can all have a reasonable
Is that the bulk of their work? These
The evaluation?
Yeah.
It's really not the bulk of the work. They're coordinators for curriculum, so the bulk of their work is to coordinate and design and work with teachers on curriculum.
Yeah, that's where I really want them to be.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather them do the curriculum than the
So do teachers, like, in an org chart, I'm sorry, I'm a visual thinker. Do teachers report to them, or they report to their principal?
They report to the principal.
And these folks just inform the principal of their anecdotal, what they saw in the classroom. So the principal still is in charge of signing off on the evaluation, but doesn't actually do the evaluation.
They themselves will visit the classroom, and they will confer with the person who, if they've decided, if you're in Center School and Mr. LaClasse has said, why don't you take Nicole this year, then they'll confer, they'll look at the goals, they'll talk about that, and then the STEM coordinator will visit your classroom 5 to 10 times during the course of the year. And the principal might get in there 2 to 3 times a year.
Do these people then also act as like mentors?
They have many facets of the job. They act as instructional coaches and provide support that way in their field and their content. They don't necessarily act as mentors, but they're resource people. So teachers often will send an email and say, I really need a supplement. I have to enrich a program, and I really haven't found the right resource. Can you be looking for this? And then they're off doing that work.
Okay, but they don't have any direct involvement in disciplining or hiring or a specific teacher.
So
Because they all report to the principal.
correct. So if there were concerns in the evaluation process, they're going to be part of that. And they're certainly on interview committees for their departments, so their content areas.
So this person does the evaluation, I have to get this, because it's just a different model. Is this a new model? Is this a common model? Is this
Very common model.
It just, and
In
when
education.
did we start when did we start implementing this role?
Well, it was, before I got here, they had a content area coordinator for every content area. Then that.
But just for curriculum?
Just for curriculum.
They didn't do evaluation?
They did not do evaluation.
That makes sense, okay.
And then, as we've been trying to phase in the new evaluation system, it became apparent that it's just too demanding for the few building level administrators we have, so we added this
How
onto
do
their
the
role.
principals feel about not evaluating their staff?
They love the help. They don't look at it as not evaluating their staff. They look at it as they're having assistance in evaluating their staff.
The evaluation process is changing so dramatically, so now you have to have 10 observations,
5 to 10, depending on the
5 to 10,
plan.
and it used to be 3 to
One.
5.
Could be one.
Could have been 1. So all of a sudden, the workload for the principals has gone bananas. I mean, like tripled because of the new rules, laws.
It's just tough because it takes away the control from the.
It's still in the hands of the principal. The principal still control.
And so right now we have 5,
There are 5.
and you want how many?
Well, I haven't asked for any in a long time. I mean, the last one was the enrichment coordinator
But
2
you
years ago.
mentioned
they're in the budget this
after
year.
the budget.
Well, ideally,
Just one.
ideally, it would be great to have somebody for social studies and/or foreign language, because those are 2 areas that have not had somebody leading that particular charge. I take those on.
So we're gonna have 7, if you get those 2?
Or combine those.
Oh, that's what was in the budget? Those 2 were in the budget?
They were not in the budget that I proposed, no.
Not this year. I thought I saw that.
No.
Yeah, I did too. They were,
We proposed them a couple years ago as a humanities.
they actually came up in the budget this year.
I think we discussed, but I didn't
put it
propose
in?
it as mine.
Okay. I guess, I did not realize, and I'm not really sure about the CIAs, and I'm sure that they're doing good work, but the guidance has got 250 kids per guidance counselor?
245 at the high school.
245. And I guess, this is kind of a moot point because you didn't add two more, but I remember a discussion about them was to reduce the number, to reduce their workload because what they're doing was so important. And I think what struck me when the conversation went about was, why would we put two of those in first when we really need to lessen the load of the guidance counselors? Because the kids are why we're there, not evaluating teachers.
I mean, that's a bit of a chicken or the egg. I would argue that, the better we can make all teachers, the better that is for all kids.
Yeah, but then we're going back to the presentations you made in January and February, and they both said that we were data-rich and information-poor, which means we're collecting all this information, but we're not doing anything with it.
That's so sure we're not doing anything with it, but there is a lot of information, and it takes time and personnel to implement the kinds of responses to it. There's no need, there's no denying that we could use another guidance counselor at the high school, but we did just add a social worker at the high school level, and we have some flexibility with other guidance staff to be able to lower the overall load, and that's what we chose to do this year until we can have another look at how to add guidance. I'll point out that at the elementary level, they have the same, if not larger, loads.
Do we have, not to dogleg here, but do we have school psychologists in schools in the lower grades?
We have, our school psychologists have dual roles. They have team chair and their school and the school psychologist. They're based out of central office, and then they go off to because they do grade level spans, they don't do schools.
Is there one Maureen for all 3 through 5?
Yes.
You're traveling.
Thanks, this was really interesting. Thanks.
Yep.
Move on? Yes, sir. Okay. Third quarter financial report on the transfers?
Yes, so there are two documents there on the agenda. One of them is my memo, and the other one is the actual third quarter financial report. It's listed as transfers, but it's actually the financial report, the line-by-line item for each of the accounts that we have. So, just to talk very briefly to the memo, since we've talked a lot about this over the last few weeks as part of our budget discussion, there are two significant financial issues that challenge us, namely the two major deficits we've talked about, the nearly $400,000 deficit in special education out of the district tuition, and the $210,000 approximate deficit in snow and ice removal. There are other items of concern in the budget as we go forward, but I think as of right now, they look okay. I mean, very close on the energy lines. Both our oil and electricity are close because of the fact that oil heating season has obviously went a little bit longer than we may have hoped, and a little bit harsher than we may have hoped. In electricity, we have to deal with the fact that some rate increases during the year that weren't necessarily anticipated. But those are the two areas which have some concern, but overall, I think we're going to, as of right now, we should eke them out. So, given everything, I believe we will close out the fiscal year with a small surplus, which we have to do, really. There are two things that we have to address. It's the $390,000 or so surplus deficit in the other district tuitions and the $210,000 in ICE. Right now, I cannot identify enough funds to cover both. That doesn't mean we don't have them, it just means when we cover the $210,000, it'll be likely from a myriad of line items that we'll have to put together as the year comes to a close, probably from our payroll line items. But I would ask that the school committee tonight consider the motion to recommend, to transfer $390,000 from control line item insurance and benefits to control line item special education out of district tuitions. That will allow us to balance those line items out.
as I say, right now I don't have a source of funds identified for the $210,000, mainly it's just gonna have to come from multiple line items. The issue we talked about, the sprinkler system at the high school, has come to, we've worked it out, it looks like the total cost of that analysis and fix will be somewhere in the area of $40,000. So that is one other thing we're gonna have to try to figure out how to balance into this budget this year.
How much work is involved?
Yeah, what is that?
It's replacing it's replacing close to 400 sprinkler heads.
So they didn't put a single sprinkler head in correctly?
No, there's 1,000 sprinkler heads in the high school.
So did they change the ceiling type and not tell anybody?
Excuse me?
Or was the ceiling type changed or something?
No, the system was put in when the school was renovated 15 years ago as required by code, and apparently it was not installed correctly, because there's nothing that would have caused them to change over those 15 years. And no one noticed it. The inspectors for the town didn't notice it, whoever the clerk of the works were didn't notice it. And it's because we don't have free hanging in most areas sprinkler heads. They are covered by, so they have to, when they activate, they drop a little bit, and these don't drop enough, so.
Can you just say the number again?
What's it gonna cost?
About $40,000, $30,000 for the repair, and $10,000 for the inspection. Maybe 40 to 45,000 would be the total cost of the project, which is a little bit less than we had actually feared originally.
In Michael's report right here, it says the cost is estimated to be less than 24,000.
Well, these numbers just came in today.
Oh, okay.
It literally just came in today, so I'm not sure. I don't know if you're referring to the engineering study or.
George likes to increase it. A little buffer in
But the
there.
total cost is gonna be about,
I just thought I was confused.
yeah, no, I'm sorry, well, we literally just got this today.
The numbers are inverted. By my eyes or the paper, I'm not sure.
So that's where we stand. I'd be happy to answer any questions from anybody about where we are to date, but the one motion I would ask is that we transfer the money to cover the special education out of district tuitions. And we'll do the rest in June.
This document, George, is
Yep.
this your general ledger? What is this document?
That's the monthly report. It's a report that we develop out of our accounting system that gives a current status of each account as of the end of the third quarter.
Do you have a version of this that shows what the proposed budget was? So in other words, because I like this document, it tells me, and actually I want to see it. Can we see this on a monthly basis?
Well, you see it on a quarterly basis.
Okay.
Could change some monthly reports, I guess, but don't have.
I mean, you're doing it all the time anyway, so it's up to date, right? I mean, it might be just helpful to be able to go somewhere. I don't know if you have to password protect it or whatever. I'm happy to do whatever, but I think this would be very helpful for me. And I would love to know if there is an opportunity to add a column that's the proposed budget. So you have the budget, you have the adjustments, but I would like to know what we have proposed
Well, for the next budget?
what did we propose last year?
Well,
That's the first column.
That's the first column.
That's what's above.
That's what's budgeted.
That was the voted in budget,
Yeah.
no, but that wasn't the original, right?
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
In most instances, there weren't many major changes, but we don't carry those numbers in our system, so it would not be possible. We don't carry any numbers that aren't voted on in our system.
So there's no visual for what the requested FY15. Okay.
Well, that is the FY15 budget. If there are,
She's saying that.
we don't make any changes generally
We don't make any changes.
until the end of the year. You make them with the transfers, and they would be noted in blue.
But what she's talking about, I think, is like what we propose versus what the school committee voted, the changes in there, what the school committee voted. But
Oh.
we don't carry those
We don't
numbers
carry that in this system.
at all. I
You
mean,
carry it anywhere?
it would be in the old budget documents, I guess. if
We'd have to
you made any
manually
changes, but
do it.
For the most part, there's not major changes, and if they
Okay.
are, they're along payroll line items, so it doesn't make it, this year it'd be a nightmare because of the payroll issue.
What about, did we try to apply for any state or federal funds for the blizzard?
Just The declarations just occurred, but we're certainly,
So we will, okay,
we certainly will try.
great.
But it could be a long time before we get that.
Yeah, well, yeah, but, so what, as long as we apply for it, right?
It will, I can almost say with certainty, the reimbursements will not occur this fiscal year.
Right.
It will be a subsequent
Right,
fiscal year.
yeah, that's understood.
Yeah.
And then, if I can, do we get this every, and I'm sorry if we do and I don't
Every
know.
quarter,
So
yeah.
every quarter, so, okay, good, yay, and this is the full document.
Yeah.
Okay. At the end of the year, can we have a roll-up of, and this may not be necessary, and it actually may already be on this document that you're carrying it over from year to year, quarter to quarter for the year, what all of the adjustments are.
What
So
adjustment?
if we made adjustments for this quarter, you look at them, you make your transfers, and then next quarter, we're transferring
Yeah.
every quarter, and I would like to just see a roll-up of what we transferred.
Right, we usually only transfer once a year. This year's been a little different. We usually only transfer at the end of the fiscal year. but
Right.
Because of the large sums this year and the payroll issues to make the budget make more sense when we transferred in December to make the budget actuals make more sense in comparison to FY16. Transferring now, obviously, a large amount of deficit is not something I really want to carry in one line item like that. Usually we do it at the end of the year, but I believe there's a report that could show that, yes.
Yeah, if we could get a report at the end of the year that does a roll-up of all transfers throughout the year, that would be helpful.
Yeah, we can do that.
Thank you.
Essentially, won't the
Yeah.
total be in the adjustments column?
Yeah, yeah,
And then the year-to-date, so you
Yeah.
they're actually there now.
Yeah, they're there
actually
now.
already be there.
Right, they're actually there, Lorraine, but the problem with the adjustments column is also the offsets.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
my
yeah.
original question, was is it in?
They're actually there now, Lorraine, they're in that adjustments column, but also in the adjustments column are the offsets, so that's, the negatives are the,
Yes,
but, so there are just the transfer document itself, we can reissue that has everything on it, but they are showing in there right now, just to make that clear. So,
but that's the aggregate of whatever activity's gone on throughout the year.
yes,
Right.
those are only,
Approved by the school committee.
yes.
But we only make adjustments.
Usually twice a year, right?
Generally only once a year, but this year.
We made some in December this year because to make the budget document, because of the payroll issues, to balance that out, to make the budget document at the end of the year make a little more sense. It wasn't perfect, but it made a little more sense. So normally we wouldn't do that because they're not that big, we can do it. But this year, since we had some COLA increases, which were not budgeted, we had to do that. Made it work.
Why the leave of absence so high?
I'm sorry?
Why the leave of absence so high?
I mean, I don't know.
I mean, are these pregnancies or leave?
Yeah, they're
Mainly,
primarily-
yeah, primarily, yeah.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah. So,
we need a motion, right?
Yeah, the transfer, yes, that would be helpful, yes.
Sorry, were there more questions?
well, I was just wondering, all these negatives that are showing up on the remaining, are those going to get taken care of? I mean, I'm not sure why we're doing this now.
I'm doing it now on one major item. What other negatives, I mean, are you concerned?
You're missing, let's see,
This is more-
workers' compensation insurance
Yeah, that's all-
and
that'll-
dental insurance.
Yes, that would be, that's, right. The dental insurance is balanced off within the account. It's a control line item, so the dental insurance is balanced out. You see the active insurance has 58,000 plus, so therefore it's, that's all set right there. Workers' comp will be balanced off out of either unemployment or property and casualty. But there's still a surplus projected of $390,000 in that line. That's not asking you to transfer.
Any other questions?
Is this normal to have these going throughout the year?
What
All these
normal?
transfers throughout the year, is this normal?
Well, I just explained, we usually transfer only at the end of the year, it was usually not that significant. This year we did it in December in order to make the budget look more accurate for year-to-year comparisons for FY16. I'm asking this be done now because of the large amount of money in deficit in that line item, so I want to balance those two line items off closer to their projections. So, future reports, if we do the monthly or whatever, will look accurate as best as we can.
I move that we make the transfers as recommended by George
open this discussion.
I support.
All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Old business, we have policy, third reading, buildings and ground security. Somebody from policy want to take that away?
No, actually, I think we were waiting on Lynn to have, she had some comments, that was the reason for it.
Well, I started to write it out, and so it ended up being a note. I emailed it to everybody kind of late. But I met with Suchi and George. I reviewed the plans that Suchi had, and I talked to engineers, vendors, and the district IT professionals that have from schools. And my background's in telecommunications as a registered communication distribution designer, so I have a unique perspective on this, and I have come to the conclusion that I can't solve this for you guys. But, I mean, if you want to pay me, I'll go do it. But, I mean, I just don't have time.
Hey, wait a minute. I'm not getting paid for an incredible amount of
This
work
is
over here.
different. All right? It's been suggested by the people that I talked to that the issue is the network and configuration of the said network. It's been suggested that it's the
You better slow down, girlfriend, because I can't understand a word you're saying.
It's been suggested that it's the throughput algorithm. It's been suggested that the HP switches we utilized have an inherent problem with cameras. But everyone I spoke with agreed that the service being stunted during the school day does not sound optimum, especially when it is documented that the traffic peaks are before 8 a.m., at lunch, and after school hours. So something's off. After talking to the staff and teachers, another consideration occurred to me. There is a disconnect between staff and IT. Whether it is because they do not understand the process in place for repairs or are unaware of the process, or they have lost confidence in the process, I'm not certain. I believe that Suchi is doing the best he can under difficult circumstances, but I also believe that he is somehow not exposed to the issues that are bubbling to the surface. I suggest that we suspend all IT initiatives until the network and services are reviewed and streamlined, including the security cameras, and since there is a good possibility they are contributing to the delay in service, and the one-to-one Chromebooks for the 8th grade. As a side note, the one-to-one initiative has multiple issues associated with it. One, the problem regarding the one-to-one utilization in adjacent rooms is still to be resolved. And two, there seems to be a need at the high school for these devices, but only a desire at the 8th grade. That said, I have reviewed the NRSD's tech plan for 2010 to 2014, which was drafted in 2009 and never modified. The information is old and dated, but it has revealed some interesting issues. Under B, the school committee is supposed to be involved in the vision and the implementation of strategies for IT. The district is supposed to, and then C1, the district is supposed to assess the technology products and services that will be needed to improve teaching and learning. C2, the tech plan is supposed to have benchmarked all the existing services and devices. Item D, I couldn't look up the CIPA and the AUP to date, but I thought we worked on that, so I wasn't sure, but I couldn't find it under policies.
It's online.
Yeah, I know, I have a hard time finding those. E3 states that the parents will be a resource for leveraging the budget. I didn't understand that. F1 states the district will evaluate the effectiveness of technology resources toward attainment of educational goals on a regular basis. And F2 said the plan is supposed to have an evaluation process that enables it to monitor progress in achieving its goals and to make mid-course corrections in response to new developments and opportunities they arrive. But it's not in the plan. So on the whole, the district technology plan is old and outdated. It would be detrimental to the district to continue adding wireless devices, cameras, or any technology to the current LAN WAN without reviewing the existing system. So that's my recommendation.
So we were just talking about building and security.
And it's going right through your Hewlett Packard switches. Everything goes through your switch, whether it's the data, the building management system, everything goes through that. The cameras, they all go through. But the first thing that came to mind was the
Tell me
cameras.
what that is in, like,
People terms?
As far as what, well, there's a switch that everything goes through,
okay.
so,
So everything as in internet,
yep,
cameras,
'Cause-
telephone?
yep.
everything
Well, I'm not so sure about the telephone, but we've got some IP telephone, so George Shaker said yes, so everything goes back to the high school. So if you're gonna, we have network devices, we have web devices, and we have service all at the high school, so everything's gotta go through the high school. So in order to do that, we've got an HP switch, so all the devices will go through there.
So you're saying adding any more to that switch that isn't efficient right now?
And again, we might have our parts and pieces, but if it's the cameras that are upsetting the Hewlett Packard switch, then maybe they should be removed off the switch.
But there's no problem with the switches.
No, there isn't. The switch is fine. But when I have to go and talk to somebody and they bring up my child's work and it takes 5 minutes for it to upload, it really impacts the guidance counselors. I mean, it's not slow here, but everyone else I talk to, it's slow.
So, Lynn, can you just summarize for me? So, we're talking about the buildings and ground security policy, and
And as soon as that policy gets accepted, they're buying cameras and they're going through the switches.
That's not true. There's a minimal number of potential additional cameras going in.
But it sounds like you're saying there are existing issues without adding.
And there's-
So what is, if this is what you do,
Yeah.
what's your recommendation? I think maybe that's part of what you're getting. What is?
That's what I was just starting to
What
ask
is
you.
your
Sorry.
recommendation to move forward?
You need to work on the plan and you need to review it.
It
and
is
has-
being reviewed, it's being worked on. I don't know where you got that, but there's a.
When you look it up, that's where that's what you get.
I just,
Okay,
So, is your recommendation a particular amendment to this policy, or is it that we table this for future discussion, or what is the recommendation?
I would table it because all you're doing is adding to the system that's already struggling in areas.
so if we table it though, what's that gonna, so hold the thought.
Yep.
If we table it, is there some urgency to what we need to be voting on right now?
I don't think there's any urgency to it. It's just a desire as part of our overall security plan to have
And
more
it's
cameras.
a recommendation by the state.
So if it's not, okay,
It's a
so if it's
recommendation.
not, if there's not like an issue that if we don't do this right now, but then would you be willing, I mean, I don't know how, I mean, you're on the school committee, what the heck, right? Would you be willing to share with us exactly what needs to be done and within a time frame so that it doesn't languish? If there's some additional work or recommendations that need to be made?
The hardest thing is actually getting the information about what's existing.
I mean,
So,
There's no reason to delay putting additional cameras in the system. Is our system 100% perfect? No. Okay, it's not. Are there areas of, we'd like to have more of? Yes, and we're addressing some of them. We have two issues. None of them involve the cameras and the switch. The capacity on the fiber that goes into the high school from all our outposts is no problem whatsoever, okay? There's two areas where we'd like to get better, and in our budget plan, they are both scheduled for upgrades this year. One area is our bandwidth to the internet from the high school. That's being increased this year. That's the chart that Suchi showed you when he spoke that night, and that's the chart that sometimes we go over if we're allowed to use it. So if the internet is slow, it's because we're sending so much out to the internet. The cameras never go on the internet, okay? So they use none of that. They use zero of that. They never go on the internet because they're in our intranet. They are not available on the internet, okay? So they have nothing to do with that part of the problem.
can you access it from home?
What's that?
Can you access any of those cameras from home?
Only if you VPN into the network, and only a very limited people have that access to VPN to the network. But you cannot access them on a website. You have to do it through being in a virtual private network to our network, which is highly secure, and as I say, very few people have access to that, to a VPN. I'd say under 5. Well, maybe the tech people, and under 5 other people have access to that. So that's one area of problems, had nothing to do with the cameras. And it's not a problem, it's just one area where we can improve access to the internet, our bandwidth. The second area that we have find challenging at times is hitting the wireless access points in the schools, okay? So the class here and the class next door all puts their Chromebooks on the beginning of class. Until we increase our wireless access points, it is going to take, it sometimes will take a little while to boot up. Once they boot up, they're fine, because the internet and intranet connection are fine. The initial boot up is our access point issue, and we continue that access point, and we will continue that access point. Every 8th grade classroom is going to have an access point next year in order to meet the initiative. So district-wide, I don't know how many cameras we have. The lion's share of the cameras we have are at the high school by far. The majority of the cameras we have district-wide are at the high school. I'd say almost a super majority. I think there's like 40 at the high school and 20 elsewhere. Out of all those cameras, there are a couple, I think I can think of 1 to 2, and there may be a couple more in the high school new cameras, that are wireless, okay? So they're only using the access points in only in 1 or 2 very small instances. Otherwise, they're all hardwired back to our intranet. So delaying the policy accomplishes nothing. Our network is dynamic. We continue to look at it. We continue to try to fix it. But right now, you're trying to apply fixes to an area that isn't broken. Okay, the 2 areas that no area is broken, but the 2 areas that we'd like to, and you can smirk, Lynn, at me, but there is no broken area. It works every day. Okay, the 2 areas. If there's any problems whatsoever, the 2 areas are access points and internet bandwidth, and both are being addressed in this budget. So I mean, and the amount of cameras we'd be adding in the near future, since given our recent cut in the facilities budget, are minimal. I think there might be a couple at the high school and a couple others here and there, which we're going to try, but probably under 5, because I don't think we have any money for cameras. I may be wrong about that. We have minimum money for cameras if we do, and we don't have any cameras short of the ones we bought from Bolton last year, maybe, and I think some of those have been used in stock. So therefore, a handful of cameras at best, blind spots in the high school and things, and delaying the policy any further just doesn't, it's not going to solve any problems whatsoever, and in isolated instances, it's going to make things a little bit more difficult. So I would.
And the cameras aren't the issue, it's the network.
I agree, the cameras are not the issue, so that's why I don't understand why we're holding up the policy.
Because as soon as you pass the policy, you buy the cameras. You
I
put them
just
in.
said we're not. We have very minimal, if any, money for cameras. We just cut a large amount out of the facilities budget.
I think you should be concentrating on the network.
All I can say, that's certainly up to the committee, is they can decide what they'd like to do about it. But I just don't see, I'd summarize by 2 points. 2 points in the suggestion. The 2 points is, I don't think that delaying the policy is going to have any impact in the network one way or the other. And I want to assure everyone that we understand the system is dynamic. We're always working it, and we're always trying to improve it, and we invest money every year in improving it at the points of weakness, particularly other areas we start out improving it each year with the money we invest in infrastructure. And I think to paint it as being, I think it's pretty good, to be honest with you. I think she's done a good job with it, which is the suggestion. I think if you want to explore this further, I think she would welcome the opportunity to make a presentation about it, again, if you feel it's necessary at this level of detail to the school committee. But I really feel like we keep answering the same questions, and I'm not sure that's productive.
You're not answering the same questions. I'm hearing, I sat in meetings that they were concerned because it takes a teacher 4 minutes to set up, and it's 4 minutes out of class time, and they added it up and said the kids are missing so many classes per year because of 4 minutes. And yet, if it takes 5 minutes for the guidance counselor to pull up somebody's profile, that's okay.
It doesn't happen that way on a regular basis. I would just disagree with that.
That's
Classroom.
one person.
Yeah.
I don't know why we'd be basing any kind of major decisions around one person.
Oh, I'm sure it isn't just one.
But you have to extrapolate that, and you don't have any basis to do so. Maybe it's the computer, not the internet at all.
Wait a minute. Are we talking about things not running smoothly and well and slow in the high school?
Absolutely.
Okay, because if that's the case, and you and I haven't talked about this, I was in the guidance department a couple weeks ago, and we sat there waiting, and it was at least 5 minutes, and it was
I think
uncomfortable.
it's the access point bandwidth issue, right?
Well, those computers should be plugged in, so I don't know why that would
Yeah, I
be.
don't know why
That's
that
not
would be
even.
the case.
And then
That's
the
like
kids
it's not.
my son,
That's
kids are
even worse.
complaining about it too, so I don't know what the issue is, because I don't do your world, and I don't do your world, but there's an issue, so if the concern is that we want to get this policy passed, do we just either take the cameras out of it, or make a commitment that we're not going to purchase the cameras until this committee or this whatever needs to be done is done?
Well, my overall issue is that we are expanding this network that I think just needs some help. I don't know if it's an algorithm problem, I don't know if it's a configuration problem, a throughput problem, I'm not really sure what it is.
I'm not a complete technical expert at all, but I disagree with that premise. I think the premise is incorrect.
So we held those forums in the high school, I sat there with 10 teachers, and I heard overwhelmingly, Michael sat right next to me, that it is a problem. I came after the meeting, and I said it to you, and you said you don't think it's a problem, and I said, George, I was literally just 10 feet
I don't
away
deny
with
that it's a
10
problem.
teachers. I don't know what the problem is, I'm not gonna pretend I do. But it could be a computer, it could be a network, it could be a wireless connection, who knows? But I understand Lynn's frustration, because it's not one person, it was 10 teachers, so that affects 150 students. I don't know how often the problem is, they said it's getting better, so they did say it is improving, so that was good, but they said it's still a problem.
And I think I acknowledge there are 2 areas that we are improving, and those will continue to improve. All I'm stating is that, and we can continue to talk about that, and we continue to talk about the ways we are addressing that, and, I don't think, I think people's perspectives are different on how significant it is, but we are trying to fix those areas. All I'm saying is, I really don't think any of it is going to be impacted by the adoption of this policy, and there are some school safety issues and things
I
that
agree
may be,
with that
that may be
statement.
improved by the adoption of this policy. That's
I
all I'm
agree
saying.
with that statement.
That's all. And
I think they're 2 separate,
We're
semi-related.
supposed to be dealing with a policy at hand, the buildings and ground security policy. I think at this point, somebody should make a motion, we vote for it or we don't vote for it. And Lynn's recommendation is we don't vote for it.
But is that your recommendation?
The policy's fine, I just don't want to add anything to the network. I think
So, maybe that's the issue, if,
Can't write that into a policy.
no, obviously, but, if that issue, I don't know how to solve for this, I don't know what the
Well,
directive
Can I
is.
make a suggestion? I think there are 2 separate issues, vote up or down the policy. We will bring Chi in and share with you again the information relative to the bandwidth and the network, so that the full committee can hear it. I will personally go up to the high school and talk again, specifically with the guidance department to get a determination on some issues there, but talk again with Perry to hear and see. I think a lot of this around what we heard at the table, and you framed it well, is that, last year when we added the mobile, bring your own device, and we've been adding the Chromebooks at the high school, it just really slowed down the system. And teachers weren't prepared for that, we weren't prepared for that. That was a lesson learned, and we got right on it as soon as we could. But the memory in place is, it got slowed. And that's where we are. And people have got to move beyond that because it's gotten 10 times better.
And the slowness is connection to the access points, not the network.
Right.
Because that's how we improved it. That's how we fixed it.
Yeah, but we don't want to keep that up where we add and then race to fix, add and race to fix. I mean, you should be ready
No,
for
like
it.
you said, we are. And when we're doing the that's exactly what Michael just said. We learned from it. And part of the infrastructure budget this year for the one-to-one is adding access points to all the 8th grade classrooms. So, I mean, you do try to learn. It is dynamic.
Do we get to talk about that,
So-
where they go? Whether they go to the 8th grade of the high school? I know, probably not right now, but
Right now, I'd like to resolve whether we're passing this.
I'm on a roll tonight, so I will make a
All right.
motion that we accept the buildings and ground security policy as presented.
I second.
All those in favor?
You really don't believe in this?
I don't, the way things have been going, if we vote in the policy, it's just going to happen.
It passed.
No, that's
Sorry.
fine.
I'm abstaining, by the way.
That's fine.
In case anybody's interested.
All those
Thank
opposed?
you.
And Lorraine is abstaining. Okay.
I'm making everybody mad.
That's when you know you have success.
Lorraine, is there anything to report from the finance committee?
Yeah, I made her.
No, we're going.
She's next.
And the personnel committee, we will be talking about that a little bit later this evening. And that will be the superintendent's evaluation. We're just going to give a brief overview of where we stand on that. Policy, is there anything to report, Nicole?
The climate survey went live last week and is getting a really nice response.
Excellent.
A really What's 50% right now?
It's 53.5%.
Wow, that's incredible.
We have this, it is so, Ann Needle, this district has incredibly, what's the word I said before? Engaged workforce. People are not, it's not like one way or the other, they're very insightful, their comments are very insightful. Huh?
I knew that.
Yes, you did. And
I think she wants to be
it's
quoted
across
as
the
saying
board. This was a quote, and it's across the board.
What I-
It's
yeah, what-
positive, it's good, it's all good, but it's across the board.
What I have liked to see is it's just not one particular, it's divided into like 5 categories with the Stowe schools and the Bolton schools and the Lancaster schools and the high school and the central office. And all of them are responding equally, and that's good to see.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
So we close on April 15th, and we'll have 2 more reminders, one tomorrow and one the day before it closes.
And I missed that. Did you get a percentage of?
53.5 so far.
Awesome. Is that the best we've done so far?
This is the best any company I've ever worked with has done. It's crazy. Did you tell them you were going to give them a bonus?
I did.
A little incentive?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Space study, Lorraine? Were you done, Nicole? Sorry.
Yes, yes. Everything else has been discussed already.
Yeah.
Space City, so we're good, we're getting really close. We reviewed the second interim report, and we're meeting next week. There's a couple of additional things that we're gonna add to the report, but we are so close, and it is so well done. And it's not because I wrote it, because I didn't, but and I think we'll probably have some type of report out, maybe the early May?
Yeah, I think the first meeting in May might work.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll be able to have some of the folks who've been putting a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in this come and report out to us.
Great.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Maureen, was something about Tri-Town?
Oh,
Good time?
oh, just real laughs. Well, let's see, we discussed the budget, of course, and these concerns about sustainability and they're happy that the increase wasn't the assessments weren't as high as original, but of course they would still like to see them lower. We spent some time discussing the vocational school stuff also, looking at, well, Minuteman is looking at a building project, they're looking at revising, or trying to revise their regional agreement, but also looking at what our options are for our students. You know, would more kids go to vocational schools if they didn't have to travel as far?
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
Can we have 2 vocational school options? Do we have to be in just one?
So, I think the short answer is no.
So we can't?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I need.
Short answers are good.
But that's not our decision, it's a town decision.
That's really a town decision.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're saying that. Oh, it's
I'm trying to think what else.
Can I, what was the one thing, you know what's really kind of cool, the superintendent of schools he's not schools, but the superintendent said that, when they looked at, whatever.
Minuteman?
He was a very eloquent, he was impressive. And he talked about the reasons why students elect not to go to Minuteman, who'd indicated
Who were accepted to Minuteman, but chose
right,
not to.
but elected not to go. And the travel was number 6 or 7 on the list, which was really interesting. So he agreed to come back with some data and I can't wait to see what they say. But I had always heard that the reason kids didn't want to go is because it's too far. And not only that, he also said, which I think is kind of cool, and no, I don't want to do this here, he's thinking about putting Wi-Fi on their buses, which is like a fabulous idea.
I have a question on that. Was the number 6 or 7 for our district kids or all of their kids?
That's a great question.
I don't know, he's going to come back with data.
I bet it's all of their kids because
Well,
we're.
I don't want to assume it because he
Right.
hasn't brought
That
in
makes
the
a
data,
huge
so.
difference.
I bet if you ask the reason for our kids, it's number 1.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
a,
that's-
you know,
that's a good
Lancaster
point.
has a huge amount of kids that go there.
Right.
I was really,
They've got
Right.
a really
I
high
was really
population.
surprised.
That's their only choice.
That's the
remember.
only
Yeah,
choice. I
that's
think
true.
if you said you can go
Yeah.
to Marlboro 20 minutes away.
But they're still going, you know?
Yeah.
So, Lorraine, who are they gonna give the information to, the selectmen or to us?
Oh, I don't know, you, Mike?
I will follow up with them, but I think it should go back to that,
To the
to
selectmen.
Selectmen, right
The
down.
tri-town.
Yeah.
We asked for it, tried to.
Yeah.
That was, it was interesting. I have a fresh perspective on that.
Yeah, I wasn't clear on who he surveyed, because that's interesting. You said of students that did not come, but.
I
don't
understood it
know.
as
Yes.
families that were accepted but chose not to go.
Okay, all right, I didn't catch that.
That's what I heard.
Of course, many families just didn't bother applying because
It was so
Mm-hmm.
far. But then the other interesting thing that came out is Don Lowe said that he had called 3 other technical schools, and I asked about Monty Tech and
Neshoba Tech.
Neshoba Tech, and they don't have any room. So it's not like you could say, well, we need to get out of the Minuteman contract or regional agreement because we can jump into another one because there's not a whole lot of space.
I thought one of those did have room.
Neshoba Tech has
Yeah.
some room, I just don't, I don't know.
No, he said he called them all 3 of those
Westford.
in the meeting.
Did you mention that they brought up what would take extra leave? What do you mean?
Oh, I don't know.
They didn't get into those details, because there would be costs involved.
So, but the discussion was opened up, is that gonna, the town's gonna talk about it?
In terms of,
I didn't get any action item that was going to be coming out of that. I think one of the things that struck me as an interesting idea was the shared space idea.
Yeah.
With satellite
Yep.
issues that perhaps might be looked at.
Or space.
need both.
Okay, correspondence. I know there were several pieces of correspondence that we had in our packets, mostly regarding school choice. Anyone else have any other correspondence that we should talk about?
Yes, I got several emails and phone calls regarding the use of classroom space by renters in Maryland.
Exactly what I
Again, since we.
Oh, again.
Okay.
Oh,
It's a
big,
People were
huge
petitioning, being
uproar.
places where people could sign petitions today.
Okay.
People
Yeah,
are,
Really?
yeah,
yes,
huge uproar.
yes.
Okay.
I got a letter from someone who wants to come to the policy meeting when we discuss that, so.
There are several people on there.
Are you one of them?
Yes.
Well,
My daughter goes to Mary Rollins. I have 2 daughters in Mary Rollins, one in preschool and one's in kindergarten. And there are several concerns from several people, ranging from the type of use that it is to the way that they're using it. The most troubling concerns are around security, going beyond the double doors into the classrooms for small children. We don't believe that these people are being Cory checked. And there's personal, personal effects, family pictures up in these classrooms. There's also a time that the teachers need to clean up. So we're losing activities. Dramatic play, I think, is one of them. So in the preschool, dramatic play area isn't being used because they don't have the time to pick it up. They have to break it down and set it up so that the tenant can use it. So we're missing out on services. There's a security concern. And then there's the obvious, there's a lot of people that object to the type of use, that it's a religious organization, it's a church and a school. So there's several different types of concerns.
I'm not sure you were at the last meeting, but as far as renters go, we can't discriminate. That's what kind of renters. So that, but we
There have
can,
been other towns that have put it in
I think it could be.
type of use that have banned religious use.
Yeah.
You can't discriminate the type of religion, but you can discriminate religion altogether. I believe there is a precedent.
That doesn't sound right.
No, not according to the Supreme Court. But we have worked, we have met with the teachers, we have worked very closely with them of late to address their concerns. We've offered to take care of all of the setup and breakdown and gave them the choice. Some took it, some didn't. So we are trying to work through everything so that they can have a successful startup and end to their weekend. The staff involved are quarried through their purposes, and they have a very strict, actually, security system where everybody's tagged so that they know who's coming in and out of the.
But that's not what people are saying.
I'm just reporting to you what steps we've taken and what they're doing and.
With the current policy, but we can
So
still
are we
review
reviewing the policy?
Not,
Oh, yes.
not right
Yeah,
now, but the policy.
We are responding to our staff and they raised concerns and we wanted to address those concerns.
But when we originally talked about it, I didn't even realize that if you could go into anything other through the double doors. Because when we do after-school programs, like I ran lip sync, you couldn't do that. We had the option of the library, not the library, we had the option of the cafeteria, the auditorium, and that's it, the bathrooms. We couldn't even stay in the halls.
Right.
Well, believe me, I know that. We're not even allowed to hang out in the halls. It's to and from one of those places. So it really surprised me when this was even brought up last week that you could go past those double doors.
So can we put that on the next policy meeting agenda?
I don't know if it'll be the next, this is a very active policy
It's
group.
the May 8th.
So I think it's going to be in May.
Yeah, that's what I told my person.
So May 8th will be on that?
Don't
Yeah, I mean,
But
we'll-
is there
Don't quote me on the
are you
8th, but it
meeting
is on
after
the
that?
8th.
When's because we would want to get the policy recommendation and then go to the next school committee meeting to vote. When, does it line up?
right.
Maybe we do
Did we
another.
address the allergy issues too?
That's what we
That's
have
one
to,
of the
that's
the
the
allergy
next one.
issues in the class. No, and I'm just saying, you know, they're having snacks in the preschool classroom, they eat a
Why
peanut
are we
sandwich.
letting
There's no
people
food,
know?
there's no food in the classrooms.
Oh, you know what, I will, if you want to make a picnic out of the next policy subcommittee.
The 15th is, I'm sorry, it's.
Is Kara going to be able to be there?
I don't know. I'll look. I'll ask tomorrow.
I
It
have-
sounds like, I mean, people are.
So maybe we schedule another meeting, you know, like we've done with policy a lot lately. We've had more meetings than once a month, so let's schedule another.
If we do the, I have to, can we start at 8:45?
Are you on policy?
I am.
Can we do this after?
Sure. Well,
So we'll try to get another.
We'll try to get another
an
meeting.
interim meeting.
So, my word back to the crowds, teachers and, is that we're trying to address the situation, and until we instill a new policy, we can't limit classroom use?
right.
But it is high priority.
But it is high priority. Okay, I honestly, and this is probably being naive of me, I thought when we brought it up last time that it was already getting pushed on.
Others in the queue.
Okay, any other correspondence?
Oh, 6th and 7th grade class sizes in Sawyer School. 2 parents. I don't think they know each other. And the school calendar, the late starts, there was concern about loss of teaching time. So I think isn't there something or is it in our packet, the information on starting high schools later?
There was something from an outside group.
The last.
Right. Thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you for hearing me.
So that's all I have, and school choice.
And the only other thing I have to add is, we received a letter today from the Bolton Selectmen, questioning our budget policy and
Today?
procedure.
We'll send it around. Can you send it
Yes,
to
today.
email?
Yeah, it just came in the mail today.
Is it on here?
No.
It came
Came
late
late.
Came
today.
it when I got the mail at 4 o'clock.
I did too.
Date stamped it.
That's what I responded to already. I think I see
Oh,
some-
that's the one you see, oh, I thought you meant on the letter, it was an email, okay.
No, it was a letter I received from them. Superintendent's report?
Well, it'll be brief because I think we've done everything that, we've spoken about everything on here, but I can get this in there. I'm honored to share our valedictorian and salutatorian. They've been announced by Dr. Graham. Seniors Riley Davis and Natalie Batiste. Riley will be the valedictorian and Natalie will be the salutatorian, and I hope to have them at our next meeting for graduation. What's that?
What time's are they from?
I don't know.
Riley's
I
from
don't-
Lancaster, and I don't know where.
Natalie's from Bolton.
And
There we
Natalie's from
go.
Bolton, there we go.
I just know there are kids.
Do we know where they're going?
I do not yet. That's my next piece.
They got 3 weeks.
That's right. And that's it.
Okay, and then is your
Oh,
superintendent's
yes,
evaluation part of
that's a
that?
part of that. So I put in your packet the overview slides that are actually provided by MASC. So some of you may have already had some access to them. I defer to you as to whether or not you would like some, some discussion about those. They line up very well with our process and the materials that we use. I think the request was made that we meet next Wednesday and actually go through my evaluation where I would present you with the evidence is the plan. I'll have it to you in advance of that meeting so that you can go through it. And then you would fill out the documents after that online. Would be my guess.
Who created this?
The slides.
Or who created the evaluation?
The evaluation was originally created by Desi. And then we just put it on Google.
So when does this have to be done by?
So ideally, the evaluation should be done by, so you'd have the April 15th meeting, and then your last meeting as this official board is May 6th. So it should be done May 6th, so that it's the same board that's been with me throughout the whole year, essentially, is completing the document. So,
And you select based on your goals. Do we even know what the goals are? Or
so
Did
this
you share
year,
that with us?
essentially, we're gonna go with the school improvement plan, the district improvement plan,
You'll have all
because
of
it took
that
so long for,
in one place
yeah.
for doing the evaluation. And that will be a part of, on the 15th.
Right.
so on the 15th, okay, so explain how that's gonna work. And on the 15th, the evaluation is gonna be presented?
No, it's, the evidence is going to be presented.
Right.
Right.
And then we create the evaluation by forming our opinions after we get the evidence. Then we go home and we do it online on a
Right.
survey format. We each do it.
Instead of us just getting the links to the docs like last year.
Right.
I remember having like, I don't know if I
Yeah,
can
that
answer
was
a
my
million
understanding.
questions, so we're having this
Was like,
workshop
oh, yeah.
beforehand.
Got it.
Right.
So that's why I asked.
So this is an additional meeting, it's not a regular scheduled meeting, just to do this, so that we don't get the questions that we had last year and the, people that can have an opportunity to just say, what does this mean?
And will we be able to see the blank document that we're supposed to fill out prior to the 15th? Just so I
Yeah, I can-
can get
I can email
my
that out
questions in my
tomorrow.
head.
Yeah.
All right.
And is the 15th going to work for everybody? Is there anybody who cannot make it?
What, is it at the same time?
I think 6 o'clock, unless we
6?
need to make it otherwise.
I just have to leave by 8:30.
Okay.
people are checking their calendar as well. That's good.
Mine was
Okay.
too surprisingly, even though I didn't know that I missed something.
And, Alita, would you be able to send Kara an email just letting her know about that? She's the only one not here.
And she
so-
thinks this is her last meeting, so remind her that she can.
I already reminded her that
Yes.
she's got May 6th left.
And we need her here.
She didn't respond to my email.
Yeah.
She's checked out.
Bye-bye.
Okay, citizens' comments. Anything that we have not touched upon yet from our citizens?
Uncharacteristically quiet.
And the consent agenda, if there are no objections, the warrants from April 10th, 2015, as well as the minutes from March 25th, 2015. Nicole,
They've been
was
corrected,
corrected? Excellent, okay. Nobody's objecting, so we will consider them approved. Thank you. Any items for the next agenda?
The only thing I just want to make sure we do before the end of the year is that review, or even if you just send it to me, the review from Emerson Hospital. I want to see if we.
Oh, we're working on it, and we just released it to the principals, so we can do it on May 6th.
Okay.
And, Michael, the last time we met, we talked about some stuff, there were some committees that we used to have, like there was a
Yep,
committee.
committees
on-
are in the packet.
They're in this packet?
Yep. And I'll get I'm working on the history of the
Oh, committees.
chapter 7.
If you go back
I'm looking at
to the packet,
All right.
it was sort of related issue.
Other
Our
than
actuals. Yeah, we can
Kathy's
look at it.
item, anything else
Yeah, that was just.
for the next agenda? Actually, Michael, can you include in these, like, do we still have Renzulli?
Do we still, we have, we do not still have Renzulli.
So do we have any programs similar to that, like, that the kids can jump onto?
So
Raz, I know that Raz was there for a while.
we have a number of different software that are similar, but not like Renzulli, where it was a project-based tool.
So can we have a list of the, all the softwares that we have licenses for that we have to pay for
Software?
yearly?
Sure.
Yeah. And if any of them are connected to any of these committees?
Some may have come out of some
I
of
don't-
the curriculum committees, but
Okay.
I mean, I can only give you the list of district software. Individual schools have their own.
So do we know why the Gifted and Talented stopped?
Well, primarily, at that time, it was because they had finished their major project, which was their curriculum notebook, which got implemented. And then two major things happened. One was a state initiative to start Gifted and Talented failed and didn't get funded. And also our initiative to, at that time, hire an enrichment coordinator failed.
So we have a hole there, there's nothing, there hasn't been anything.
It's really not a hole because they had done their work. They had set their goal of developing their enrichment.
So where is this notebook? What-
Every school has, the notebook is available through the principal or through their professional library.
Could we get a overview of that somehow to find
Sure.
out how that works for enrichment?
Sure.
Any other agenda items? Do we have a final motion? Were you coming to discuss something in particular?
No, I just wanted to sit and listen to the meeting and see what was going on.
Oh, great. I'm just fearful that we're ending, I'm sorry.
I thought it was at 8.
Oh.
No, it ends at 8.
Oh, rats, okay.
Sorry.
Okay, no problem.
Good effort.
Come next time.
It's a lot of fun.
All right.
I move that we adjourn.
Second. All those in favor? Who seconded? I did.
Who first did it? Made the motion, Maureen made the motion?
Yes.
So Kathy,
Say that one more.
so where